Well, with more is reporter Mark Reddie. Mark, it's New South Wales Health that's really been singled out for blame here.
Yeah, Karina, that's right. Commissioner Brett Walker said that New South Wales Health took a decision to do nothing instead of applying the sanity check when it allowed 2,700 passengers, many suspected of having COVID-19, to disembark at Circular Quay in Sydney on March 19 and board planes to more than 30 countries around the world, but also to travel interstate. Now, we have got some updated figures on just how many people were affected. 28 passengers died, including 8 from overseas. 663 Australians contracted COVID-19 on board the ship. 191 crew were infected. Essentially, 39% of the Australians on board contracted the virus. What we also know is among the key findings that all passengers and crew should have been tested for COVID-19, given that there were flu-like symptoms really appearing when the ship left on March 8 for New Zealand. We also know that when it returned that many passengers were swabbed on board and that those swabs should have been tested by New South Wales Health before all those passengers were simply allowed to freely leave at Circular Quay. So that was one of the main findings. Also that the 122 suspected cases on board should have been ordered to self-isolate in their cabins, that the state government should have provided some sort of accommodation for non-residents who were ordered to self-isolate for 14 days after they'd already left, essentially like we've seen with the Melbourne quarantine hotel situation and even here in Sydney when we've seen return travellers having to self-isolate. We also have heard that many of the passengers, by the time they got the email from New South Wales Health saying that they should self-isolate for 14 days, but that also they were okay to travel, that many of them were home. One woman I spoke to was in Montreal when she got that email, and it turns out 4 of the people she was travelling with, including some in LA, also had COVID-19. Now, Brett Walker was very scathing of New South Wales Health, and he really sums it up quite bluntly when he says this is not rocket science. This was a global pandemic, an unprecedented health crisis.
Mark, was there any criticism of the Australian Border Force, which comes under federal government control?
Well, Karina, essentially there wasn't that much criticism of Border Force because the Commissioner, Brett Walker, said that it is not an agency that has medical or health expertise, and that essentially this really was down to New South Wales Health. What we also know is that the Commissioner, Brett Walker, says essentially that there needed to be better communication between agencies, including the state and federal authorities. And in a quote, he says, "It is inappropriate and unhelpful to make recommendations to experts that in truth amount to no more than just doing your job."
And so what were the recommendations from Brett Walker?
Well, essentially, Karina, the recommendations were that, to put it really simply, communication, that this was really a failure, a breakdown between a number of agencies to making sure the message was getting out. I also want to talk about a statement that's been released by Princess Cruises a short time ago. It says it welcomes the findings and expresses profound sorrow at the impact of COVID-19 on guests, crew and families. Our hearts go out to everyone who has been affected, particularly those who have lost loved ones. It also says that it welcomes the finding that none of the staff on board misled authorities, which of course came out in the inquiry that the staff sort of did the best to their knowledge in terms of handling this situation on board, that really better information should have come from New South Wales Health. But essentially Princess Cruises really wasn't criticised for its handling of the situation on board, that it should have really got better communication from those in Australia. But it has said it won't be making any comment or having any official interviews.
And Mark, the New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian, when are we expecting a response from her?
Yeah, so the Premier Gladys Berejiklian was handed this report, from my understanding, at around 4 p.m. today, so only a few hours ago. It is a 300-page report, so there's a lot to get through. She essentially released a 5-line statement saying that in the interest of transparency, that report would be made public on the government website, but that she would take the weekend to read through all those pages. It is extremely long, Karina, so I can't really blame her for taking a few days to get through all those pages.
Okay, Mark Reddie reporting there.